I'm Van.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
And Vita and Chip.
And Rocky. GOJIRA, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
GOJIRA! Just got back from the doctor visit checkup thing.
Yep. Everything's looking good.
If you're one of those individuals that's inclined to see what life is like for this one outside of this particular context,
Not just me, but our family.
yeah, our family.
Yep.
If you're of the stripe that wants to afflict themselves with the mundane aspects of the life of your two favorite friends from YouTube, check out My Sori Life. And there you are. You can.
The description will also be in the link. The link will also be in the description.
I was looking at some of the videos, and I was just like, okay. But I'm around you all the time.
It's My Sori Life. That's what it is.
Yeah. I guess, I have to take myself outside of the psychosis to
it's boring to you because it's like, well, that's what life is.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. People are like, this is great. I love seeing this.
And it's always like, this is a crisis.
Yep.
You'll have to check into My Sori Life to figure out what the crisis is. All right.
Also going to be adding our our videos from Halloween, like the stuff that we did. So.
Oh yeah, the Halloween stuff is going to be on My Sori Life. Mm-hmm. We just have a lot of content that this doesn't fit on this channel.
Right.
Okay. All right. Where Dragons Dwell, GOJIRA.
I like the name of that. Was there a movie called that or something? I don't know.
Probably.
Okay, ready?
Go!
Go.
Merci beaucoup, Hellfest. C'était un plaisir. À la prochaine.
I really like that one. Yeah. I like the way his voice was. And like, I liked at the beginning when he said alive. He said alive, like alive. I don't know. I liked it. Alive. Yeah, I
got
really,
one of those riffs that just stay with you.
I like
that's
it.
what I. That was probably one of the most ambitious kind of like, we're gonna do something different.
Yeah, it was fun.
I challenge you. You listen to close to 500 songs. Find a song like that.
Yeah.
Like, structurally speaking, and all the rest of it. Felt like it was a little 15 seconds too long. Especially
right
toward
at the
end. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Cut and paste 15 seconds, and it was really good. But like, God Almighty. I mean, whew. But you know, like, you pick up the guitar and you're like, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play something different. And you always like end up playing variations of the same thing. It's like these guys have like a completely different template.
Yep.
It's like, whoa. I really, really enjoyed the musicianship on this. And, you know, again, it's like, can you pull it off live? And I'm sure, you know, it sounds different on the studio record version of that. But I got the idea of what they were trying to do with their instruments on here. And I just thought
it had, each instrument seemed like it had like an aggressive sort of, you know, like the way that they played it with some, I don't know, some, you know, I don't know how to word that, if you know what this means. But yeah, I liked it. I liked the part when well, no, you know what made me laugh? Did you see that clown?
yeah, the clown in the mosh pit.
Clown comes like bouncing by, and it was like so weird. It like threw me off. I started laughing. I was like, what is this?
The guy's having fun.
When they go in the mosh pit, what do? Everybody just pushes each other? They kind of look like kids. Like, you know, little kids
It's
get
a
around.
circle. It's a circle pit, and everybody's kind of pushing each other, and you know, all that jazz.
I can see how it would be fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's good.
Unless you don't want people touching you, in which case then it wouldn't be fun at all.
Probably. But I mean, I'm laughing because it's like, you go into a mosh pit and you don't want anybody touching you? Okay. This is a strange idea.
Well, I would like, I don't want people touching me, but I would like to go in a mosh pit, but that can't happen. So I'm one of those people, so. So was this like all, was there some deeper meaning to this, or was this?
What did you get from it?
There was dragons, there was a mountain. To me, it sounded some Lord of the Rings-ish thing, but I remember they had the flying whales, and then it turned out to be like the world had been destroyed and like people were floating off to another planet.
Well,
so,
this
like,
is on that record, isn't it?
Oh.
Mars to Sirius, yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's part of the concept record.
Okay.
And it's right before the heaviest matter in the universe. But I don't think it's as fantastical as you. So it was interesting because I was just listening to Jordan Peterson last night, and he was talking about. Well, we can go back to Orange is the New Black.
No, I didn't have a problem listening when I was awake. It was when I was asleep, and it was turned up to 49 all night long.
Oh.
And then I woke up in the morning.
I'll just listen to it on the couch.
No, just tweak it down, babe, so you can hear it.
You should have turned it down.
Well, I did eventually. I woke up and I'm like, the fuck is happening?
You should have turned it down.
And then I realized it was like bright out, and Jordan Peterson was still like, you know, he'll like kind of like yell a little bit, and then he'll kind of come back.
I love him.
He was like doing one of those.
So he was talking about dragons in mythology. It was very, you know, it was a combination of a leopard, a tree cat, a snake, and an eagle.
It was a story?
Well, no, what he was saying is that dragons are, you know, you have a predator prey mechanism, and you know, he's coming at it from an evolutionary perspective. So when we were in the trees, we were scared of eagles because they could swoop down and scoop you up. You know, chimps. You know.
Oh.
Yeah, eagles can eat chimps. You know, so they could swoop down, and then, you know, also you'd have these leopards.
I was confused because I was picturing humans like in a tree and being scared of an eagle. I'm like, what? But then I forgot that we're talking about evolution. Go ahead.
And you have these leopards and, or lions that have kind of like a beard, And then you have, obviously, when you get to the ground, snakes are. So, like, a dragon is just an amalgam of all those. And then, and our drive to survive makes it so that you'd have to kill all those things. Right? And
kill or be killed.
Well,
Is that what you mean?
Well, it's like we're kind of like one of the few. I don't really know if there's any other organisms on the planet. It's an Alec question, but we can. Usually it's like wherever you are on the food chain, it's like you are where you are.
Right.
But we can actually, we don't have to go strength for strength. We can go with the brain.
Yeah.
And strategically find ways to kill
Right.
predators who should be higher than us in the food chain.
Yep.
And so that's where all these legends developed about, killing dragons and slaying dragons because, we had to, that marked our evolving mechanism to go from prey to predator, right? So where you go and hunt the thing that should be hunting you, right?
Yeah.
But then, this song is an interesting twist on that because you're the dragon.
He said at the end, me, a dragon, is laying there awake.
Well, yeah, it says right there, explicitly, dragons are the myth alive in the heart of men. But, he says it in the opening verse there. In this region of me, a great dragon is lying.
Oh, yeah.
On the wealth of a mighty world, my own world inside. So, the motif of a dragon who sits on top of a bunch of wealth, that's all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Not just Lord of the Rings. Actually Tolkien took it from,
Yeah.
So it's oddly enough, there's Leviathan, as Yahweh goes and kills Leviathan. And Leviathan was, this giant, sea beast character and all the rest of it. And then Marduk, there's this big, I think it was a dragon. And Marduk went and slays this beast, this dragon, and then he creates the world with the dead body of this dragon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's that on?
What do you mean?
Which?
Mesopotamian religion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was right.
It's very interesting considering the creation narratives in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Don't borrow from that at all.
Yeah.
And so the dragon motif is almost silent in the Old Testament, which is very strange.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But that's because they weren't slavishly using ancient Near Eastern resources to, maybe there's actually one real true story. But anyway, the point is, the idea of a dragon that is sitting on the wealth of the world is a and then you get the noble knight who goes in there and either he rescues a woman, that's the ultimate prize, or it's just a bunch of treasure. And it's kind of Peterson's take on that mythology is because, in order for us to get to the next stage of, not necessarily evolution, but survival, we had to realize that we couldn't be like every other animal or whatever and just run from predators. We had to find ways to actually engage it, and that's why we're so far above every other, animal on the earth, because we figured out that we had to do that, but that there would be a giant reward if we were able to figure that crap out.
Which is being at the top of the food chain? Is that the reward?
Well, being at the top of the food chain makes life very convenient for you.
Yeah.
And because you're not worried about surviving, now you can worry about things like art and music.
Yeah.
These guys, if they were busy running for their lives, Kalas, forget it. You're not doing none of that. So, of course, my perspective, in Genesis, after the flood happens, God basically says, I'll put the fear of you into the animals or whatever, and then he's like, they're good for meat.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that there's much of a difference there between that and dragon mythology, in the sense of there is a distinct time when we God said to us, look, it's you versus them. You versus the animals, and you're gonna have to kill them. And that's basically, they got off the ark because they were all hanging out in the ark and all that. And then they got off the ark, and God says, I'm gonna make them scared of you.
Right.
You're gonna have to kill them and eat them.
Right.
And so that's the perspective that Genesis takes. It's very different than we basically look, you know, the other perspective is we all looked at each other and says we gotta start killing these things because we gotta find a way to systematically clear the land of these things, because if we don't, then we're gonna be running for the rest of our lives.
Right.
And we got tired of it. So anyway, this is very. But of course, in the biblical case, you already had the treasure and the woman, and we lost it because of sin. The dragon wasn't the problem; we were the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But in the other perspective, and in the other legends and the myth, it's that it's there, it's in reach. But then you have all these predators that if you could kill, then you could attain those, and that would solve the problem.
Interesting.
Of course, what's interesting here, the perspective on this song is that closer to Genesis than the other theory, because here it's saying that the dragon is in us.
Yeah.
That we're the dragon.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, great, once you clear the leopard and the eagle and the snake, who's going to deal with you?
Right. Yeah.
And it says, in this region of me, a great dragon is lying on the wealth of a mighty world. Mm-hmm. My own world inside, because, you know, we all look at the world from our specific perspective and what our goals are and what our dreams are. And we want the wealth of the world for our sake because we're trying to build our own little kingdom or empire or whatever.
Yep.
And so you've got a dragon that's sitting on the wealth. That's a brilliant way to look at how human beings handle wealth and the realization that all of us are the dragon.
Yeah.
And I love that stuff. Because he's not blaming money necessarily. He's not blaming possessions.
Cool story though, is my.
Oh, thank you for the cool story. He's not blaming possessions necessarily. What he's saying is it's the dragon that's sitting on the possession. That's the problem. Which the Bible does too. This is probably one of the most incorrectly quoted passage of all time. One of them.
Money is the root of all evil.
No, money is the root of all evil. Most people say money is the root of all evil. The Bible doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money is the root of all evil.
Right.
So it's the person who loves the money. That's the problem. It's not the money itself. Mm-hmm. And so this was just a really good explanation of the human condition. Mm-hmm. I was blown away by it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's what was going on, but
the degree of self-awareness here is crazy because here he talks about the heart of men, which is like the macro, all of us are like this, but he also talks about seeing it within himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important thing to realize that. And
where are they from again?
France, I think they're.
Do you think that there's anything in there like sitting on the wealth thing as far as like our country versus others that are not as wealthy? You know, like, well, we're sitting here, we have food beside us that we're eating, and we put too much in our plate, so there's extra there, there's stuff in the refrigerator, you know, and there's other people in other countries that don't have any of that. Speaking of which, we have to, the Compassion kids, their Christmas gifts, you're supposed to pay the money for their Christmas gifts before Halloween, and I forgot to. So, remind me to do that tomorrow.
Why don't we just do it after we record?
Because I think they're closed. I think they have regular business hours.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, although in the Western world, I mean, I'm not sure how many people are really struggling to feed themselves.
No, I'm saying, do you think it's like our living quarters versus theirs? Like, I'm the dragon sitting on the wealth, you know, when there's other places that are...
Well, a person could make that argument. You couldn't make the argument from the song, and I'm glad that they didn't. Because it doesn't matter where you are. This is native to the human condition. Period. And you know, to try to isolate it to one group of people has always been a mistake, I think.
But what makes him the dragon? Like, we know what, like, coming from our worldview, it's that inside of the heart of every man and woman, there's that shadow self, that evil that dwells there, and that's the dragon, you know, that self-centered, that, you know, and stuff like that. But what are they talking about? They're talking about the same thing?
Well, yeah, they're talking about the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Peterson and Jung.
Some people are so aware.
Well, I've always said that original sin
and
the sinfulness of human beings and the default ticker to selfishness is probably the most easily proven Christian doctrine.
Yeah.
And one of the most ingenious ideas that Christianity has come up with. It's just easily proven.
Yeah, I think that
and anybody who denies it is just in denial, I think.
Yeah. I think I'm always surprised when people, like, know that about themselves.
I think there's a lot of doctrines of Christianity that you can come to by just simple observation. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that he didn't put it on the West or the rich or the whatever. He's talking about himself. Now again, this is a concept record, so when he uses the personal pronouns, it could very well be that he's talking about the character in the story and not himself. See what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
But either way, it doesn't matter because every character that you create in a story is simply an extension. Like I'm writing a story, and like everybody every character there is either me or a third degree removed of me.
Huh.
So it's impossible not to. I mean, there's certain theories in literature that's impossible not to. And then when you think about God writing a story in the image of God and things like that, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So because you need reference points.
Yeah.
Like for example, all my characters speak English.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, even if he's talking about the character in the story, he's still talking about himself.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Brilliant, very good self-understanding. Stop blaming other people. It's you. It's me.
Yeah.
We're all selfish.
Yeah.
It's just, people love to do that. Like, they love to point to the 1%, and it's like, okay, are you doing anything for anyone? If you're in the Western world, then you're in the 1% of human experience. Mm-hmm. Like the vast majority of us are not doing.
Yeah.
You know. You know what I mean? It's like.
I know.
It's like.
And we can always do more.
It's like we had that conversation with that guy, and then you're like, you know, at the end of the conversation, we were like, you have to do more.
Right.
But to your point, sure, that's great. And then we have all this excess food that's probably going to go to waste, 20% of it. So it's like, we always want to point to all the rich people and demonize them. And, you know, some of them, sure. Or Jeff Bezos, sure. But, like, look at yourself. Mm-hmm. Is there a dragon in you, or are you just a hapless victim of the world?
Right.
Or it's like, they talk about the 1%. And it's like, well, we got hundreds of thousands of people starving every year to death. It was that little girl from Yemen, you know, and it's like there's this picture. Yemen is going through this ridiculous famine right now because of a bunch of factors, and it's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and blame the 1% for that, and not take any personal accountability for the fact that we sit on our own little, you know, all of us have standards of living, and like I said. I've lived in a homeless shelter in the Western world for quite some time, multiple times.
Right.
So I'm not saying this as a person who, you know, I have been poor. According to American standards, I was still living like a prince compared to the majority of human existence. So it's like, I love that there was no like real dig at any particular party or group of people. It's just all of us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, that's one of the reasons that was one of the big flaws of communism, was its lack of understanding of human nature. So it's like, oh, if we get rid of the bourgeoisie, we get rid of those guys, then we're going to have a utopia. Well, yeah, you slayed the dragon. Great. That bourgeoisie, we got rid of them. We killed us some Tsar Nicholas and all the rest of them. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. And now look at it. You know what I mean? It's like. And there's certain, you know, Animal Farm, you know, like, we eventually ended up getting it when it was too late. Millions of dead people later, you know? Yeah. So it's like, and it's the same thing with capitalism. These people are like, oh, if we had a capitalist utopia, everything would be fine. Sure. Whatever you say. You know, it's like, all of us are the problem. Yeah. And until we come to that realization, forget it. And I think these musicians... You know, people are going to say whatever, but I think that they're the prophets of our culture. Mm-hmm. And what was the job of the prophet? The job of the prophet was to do about 2 or 3 things. One was to diagnose the condition, the zeitgeist, the Sitz and Leben, the situation in life, what's going on. Yep. and this is what's going on, and this is who we are as a people.
Yep.
And then put it in the face of the people, and then it was to say, you're not, as Peterson would say, you're not living up to the, the perfect ideal, or you're not, we would say you're not living in covenant with God, and you will have rewards if you change, and if you don't, you're going to end up in destruction. That was the job.
Yeah.
And these guys, that's a prophetic voice. Say what you want.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people that do that. Bob Marley was one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you listen to some of his stuff, it's clear. I was watching an interview with Nergal, and he says he hates reggae music.
Why?
And he goes, he just doesn't like it.
Just sonically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but I like Bob Marley. He says. So what can you do?
What can you do?
So,
I haven't listened to any reggae except for Bob Marley.
I think Nergal hates reggae the way that I hate country. It's like, oh, listen to Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash is kind of like a prophetic, and Marley is kind of like the same way. So it's like, I don't know. I just thought that this was like extremely significant, and I appreciated it. All right, what do you give the song?
A 10.
It's a 9 for me.
I really liked it.
It's a 9 for me. Like I said, it's about 15 to 30 seconds too long. But I really liked it. I liked the subject matter. Very brave. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.
À la prochaine.